I'm Zach Wolfett. I'm a lecturer in Holland in the Netherlands, and I'm very interested in technology and society. The book I'm going to look at is called The Distracted Mind, Ancient Brains in a High-Tech World. The book has 3 sections. The first one looks at the human brain. The second one looks at how our brains cope in the current environment. And the third one is some control techniques. The book was published in 2016. The book was written by Adam Gazzaley and Larry Rosen. Gazzaley is a professor of neurology, and Rosen is a professor of psychology. And what makes this book really interesting is they're 2 different perspectives. They've been examining this subject for many years, and they've compiled a whole host of information that supports their arguments. So the first section of the book looks at the human brain. How does the brain develop? And it looks at the cognitive control, the functions we have to control our actions. It also looks at how we set high-level goals. Setting high-level goals is a real accomplishment to override our instincts. But between reaching the goal and it's difficult to do that. The prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that controls that process, and it's still growing and developing until our mid-20s. We're trying to reach a goal, but there is interference. And interference is anything that comes between our reaching the goal and not reaching it. So when we look at this, there are different types of interference. That could be internal, like you talk to yourself and get a sort of a message, or it could be an external interruption or a disruption. Things like multitasking are part of that process. They use a model called the marginal value theorem, and that is used to examine how animals in one food source, how long they stay before they go to the next food source. So imagine you're at a bush eating berries from the bush, suddenly you run out. When do you go to the next bush? Now this model is used to relate to how we search not for food, but we're searching for information. And the big difference here is we're used to looking for resources that are scarce, and it costs a lot of energy to go to the next space. But now with technology, it's limitless, and getting to that next space is instant. The book examines how we focus on things, how different parts of the brain work together to create focus. And focus can be on one thing, or it can be a broad dispersed focus. Focus has got to do with things like fidelity. How accurately can you focus? For how long can you focus? And a big part of focus is actually actively ignoring other things that you're not trying to get distracted by. As we get older, that ability to ignore distractions actually increases. Multitasking is something we're all involved in. And we know that multitasking actually is task switching. A, B, C, D, E, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's easy. But try A1, B2, C3, D. You can see it takes more time. It costs energy. Every time we switch, it takes energy. So in order to develop our ability to drive carefully, to study in depth, to be present in relationships, we need to examine the way we multitask and actually go back to single tasking. Here you can see somebody who is very much focused on one particular task. There are 3 things we should reduce. The first thing we should reduce is boredom. If we're bored, we're going to get distracted. There are some great definitions of boredom in the book. Secondly, the accessibility. If we have instant accessibility, we're going to get distracted. So we need to limit and restrict that. The third thing we need to reduce is anxiety. If we are anxious, then we're going to start checking into other things. There's one thing we should really increase, and that is metacognition. That's the process of being aware and understanding our own thought process. So we're actually often very poor at assessing how good we are at multitasking. We think we can drive and multitask. We think we can study with multiple screens open. So to remain focused and in control, we need to develop a much better understanding of our metacognition. So it's a really interesting book. It's got a lot of, there we go, it's got a lot of interesting information in it. It's worth reading it and then rereading it, looking at the models and the ideas, a great source of references, and it's based on empirical research. So it's these 20, 30 years of research that go into the book. It's well worth a read. So I hope you've been inspired to take a look at this, and please let me know which book you think I should review next. Thank you.